March 15, 1939. Before dawn, a 64-year-old priest leans into a crackling radio microphone in a mountain office in Kust and speaks a country into existence. Outside, snow covers the Carpathian peaks. Inside, 32 exhausted men have just voted on a constitution by candlelight. No foreign ambassador witnessed it. No telegram of recognition will come. What will come, in approximately 8 hours, is the Hungarian Sixth Army. More than 25,000 soldiers, 50 tanks, 500 artillery pieces. The priest knows this. He sends a telegram to Adolf Hitler asking for protection anyway. He already knows the answer. He has known for weeks. He asks because a president must ask. 6 months before Carpatho-Ukraine declares independence, the Hungarian ambassador in Berlin delivers a quiet warning to the German government. Hungary will take Carpathia, with or without German permission, the moment German troops enter Czech territory. Germany's response: silence. In diplomatic language, silence is a contract. This is September 1938. The Munich Agreement has just dismembered Czechoslovakia and a small region in its eastern mountains, home to 500,000 Ukrainian-speaking people, suddenly finds itself autonomous, suddenly allowed to dream of statehood. Ukrainian nationalists across Europe see it as the seed of a larger Ukrainian nation. Hitler lets them dream. He has already signed the contract. He just hasn't told them yet. Avgustyn Voloshyn has never commanded troops. He has never held political office. He is a 64-year-old Greek Catholic priest, a school principal who spent decades writing Ukrainian-language textbooks in a region where teaching in Ukrainian is officially discouraged. When Czechoslovakia begins to collapse in late 1938, the people of Carpatho-Ukraine choose him to lead their new autonomous government. Not because he is powerful, but because he is trusted. He has no army, no foreign allies, no recognition from any major government on earth. What he has is something stranger, the absolute conviction that history owes his people a moment, and that this is finally it. He is wrong about the debt. He is not wrong about the moment. The Carpathian Sich is exactly 4 months old when Hungary invades. Founded in November 1938, it recruits young Ukrainian men, some from across the border in Galicia, volunteers who cross illegally to fight for a state that does not fully exist yet. By February 1939, it has 15,000 members enrolled. The problem is not enthusiasm. The problem is weapons. When fighting breaks out, the Kust Gendarmerie can supply them with exactly 41 rifles and 90 pistols. 41 rifles, 90 pistols. For a national army. Across the border, Hungary has spent months massing 40,000 troops, 500 artillery guns, 50 tanks, and 15 aircraft. Nobody in Carpatho-Ukraine knows those numbers yet. They are about to find out. March 14, 1939. Adolf Hitler summons the Czech President Emil Hácha to Berlin and gives him a choice. Sign the dissolution of Czechoslovakia, or watch German bombers reduce Prague to rubble. Hácha faints twice during the meeting. He signs. Czechoslovakia ceases to exist at 4 a.m. News reaches Kust within hours. The 32 elected representatives of Carpatho-Ukraine understand what this means. The legal framework that protected their autonomy has just been erased. They have one window, maybe hours wide, before that window closes forever. The Soym, Carpatho-Ukraine's parliament, convenes for the first and only time. They declare independence. They approve a constitution. They elect Avgustyn Voloshyn president. No foreign ambassador is present. No international body has been notified. They are voting a country into existence with nobody watching. President Voloshyn walks out of that session, sits down at the radio transmitter, and broadcasts the Declaration of Independence to whoever is listening. Then he does the thing that seals his fate. He sends a telegram to Adolf Hitler in Berlin, formally requesting that Nazi Germany take the Republic of Carpatho-Ukraine under its protectorate. He waits. The hours pass. Hungarian troops are massing on the border. Not waiting, not hesitating, already moving. Germany's reply arrives. It is not protection. It is a single instruction: do not resist the Hungarian troops. What nobody discusses is what Germany's silence had cost. For months, Hitler allowed Ukrainian nationalists to believe this region was a stepping stone to a larger Ukrainian state. He allowed the Sich to form. He allowed the parliament to meet. He allowed Voloshyn to believe. None of it was incompetence. Carpatho-Ukraine was diplomatic currency, and Hungary had just been paid. A Hungarian government representative arrives with a formal offer of peaceful annexation. No bloodshed, no resistance required. Simply accept what has already been decided. Voloshyn refuses. His exact words have survived. Carpatho-Ukraine is a peaceful state and wants to live in peace with its neighbors, but if necessary will repel any aggressor. He then orders the Carpathian Sich to resist. Not because he believes they can win. The numbers make that mathematically impossible. He refuses because surrender without resistance would mean that Carpatho-Ukraine had existed only on paper, that its constitution and its flag and its parliament had been theater. A nation that will not defend itself is not a nation. Even for 12 hours, it deserves to be real. Voloshyn himself flees to Romania with the last retreating Czech military units. But the Carpathian Sich stays behind. The Carpathian Sich fighters seize 12 armored vehicles abandoned by retreating Czechoslovak forces and organize the defense of Kust. Against them come 6 divisions of the Hungarian Sixth Army. The fighting lasts 5 days, March 15th to March 18th, and it goes badly in precisely the way mathematics dictates when one side has improvised armor and rifles and the other side has 50 tanks. But the Sich does not collapse in an afternoon. They hold positions in the mountains. They conduct street fighting in Kust. Some units engage for days before being overwhelmed. When the last positions fall, 430 Sich fighters are dead. Over 400 are wounded. Another 750 are captured. The Hungarian army officially reports 72 of their own killed, though later estimates put the actual figure closer to 197. A nation that existed for 12 hours held out for 5 days. The battle ends on March 18th. The killing does not. Sich fighters retreating toward the Polish border surrender to Polish forces. They are shot on the spot. No prisoners. No trial. No paperwork. Those who surrender to Hungary are sent to a concentration camp near Nyíregyháza. Those are the ones who survive capture. Total Sich losses, combining direct combat deaths, the execution of prisoners, and those who simply disappear, are estimated between 2,000 and 6,500 fighters. For a force that numbered fewer than 2,000 organized combatants. This arithmetic means that units are being liquidated after laying down arms. The most pessimistic calculation at the time would not have predicted this. The resistance Voloshyn ordered knowing it was hopeless turns out to cost more than even hopelessness could have justified. And the worst is still ahead. The soldiers chose to fight. The 500,000 civilians of Carpatho-Ukraine made no such choice. In the 5 days of the Hungarian invasion and its immediate aftermath, more than 27,000 Ukrainian civilians are killed, a number that dwarfs the military casualties on both sides combined. Within the first 2 months of occupation, 59,377 people are deported to Hungary for forced labor. Another 686 are sent directly to Germany, and 75,000 people flee east toward the Soviet Union, believing it offers refuge. Approximately 60,000 of them die in Gulag prison camps. A diplomatic transaction, one country traded for another country's goodwill, has just claimed more civilian lives in 2 months than most wars produce in years. This is what it costs when the currency is human beings. The man who started all of this is still alive. He survived. Avgustyn Voloshyn spends the next 6 years in careful survival. Romania, Yugoslavia, Vienna, finally Prague, where he serves quietly as rector of the Ukrainian Free University under Nazi occupation. A 70-year-old priest running an academic institution, staying out of sight, never once drawing attention to the fact that he was once president of a country. He survives the Hungarian invasion. He survives exile. He survives the Nazi occupation of Prague. He is 71 years old when Germany surrenders on May 8, 1945. The war in Europe is over. And then, on July 19, 1945, 10 weeks after V-Day, Soviet intelligence agents from SMERSH arrive at his door. They classify him as a Ukrainian nationalist and enemy of the Soviet state. They deport him to Moscow. He dies in a Soviet prison that same year. Official cause, heart failure. He never sees Carpatho-Ukraine again. He never learns what becomes of the 500,000 people he tried to protect. The priest who created a nation with one sentence, who defied an empire with a typed refusal, who ordered young men to fight a battle they could not win, is given a prison cell and an unmarked entry in a Soviet file. History erases him so completely that most people alive today cannot tell you his name. Carpatho-Ukraine passes through Hungarian occupation until 1944, when the Soviet Red Army arrives. By 1946, it is absorbed into the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, part of the USSR, renamed Transcarpathian Ukraine, its borders redrawn, its history rewritten. Every government that controls it carries the same policy. Suppress Ukrainian national identity, reclassify the events of March 1939, make the 12-hour republic a footnote or a mistake. For decades, it almost works. The Carpathian Sich fighters are not martyrs. They are nationalists, traitors, enemies of the state. Soviet maps show the region as though it was always Russian. The Ukrainian language is discouraged in schools, then in public life. But there is something that Soviet erasure cannot reach. The story that grandparents tell in private, in kitchens, in whispers. Those stories do not appear in official records. They survive anyway. March 15, 2002. Exactly 63 years to the day after Avgustyn Voloshyn sat down at the radio transmitter and spoke a country into existence, Ukrainian President Leonid Kuchma signs a decree. Voloshyn is posthumously awarded the title Hero of Ukraine with the Order of the State. The man who was arrested by Soviet intelligence 10 weeks after the war ended, who died in a Moscow prison for being a Ukrainian nationalist, is officially declared a national hero. The 12 hours of Carpatho-Ukraine, which 3 successive governments spent decades trying to reclassify as an aberration, a footnote, an embarrassment, are formally recognized as the founding act they always were. Not a failure, not a curiosity, a precedent, proof that a people can claim sovereignty even when every great power on earth has already decided they cannot. Here is the transaction, stated plainly. Hitler gave Carpatho-Ukraine to Hungary the way you give a stranger a gift you found on the street, something that was never yours, handed over to buy a moment of goodwill. 500,000 people, exchanged for a diplomatic nod. The Carpathian Sich, given 41 rifles, 90 pistols, and no tanks, chose to fight anyway. Voloshyn, president of a country that would cease to exist before sunset, chose to refuse the terms. And the republic that technically died on March 15, 1939, outlasted every single empire that participated in its destruction. The Soviet Union is gone. Nazi Germany is gone. The Hungary that invaded bears no political resemblance to what marched through those mountains in 1939. Carpatho-Ukraine is still there, not on any map, but in the founding memory of a nation of 40 million people that, 63 years later, decided the priest at the radio had not wasted his morning. History keeps track even when the historians don't. If you want more of the stories that got edited out of the official version, subscribe. There are more chapters where this one came from.